Today we are going to explore the wildlife wonderland that is Tiritiri Matangi.
This morning, before we start our activity of the day, we're having a mandatory coffee because, you know, we're in Auckland, just before heading to the Auckland Central Downtown Ferry building.
Yep, this morning we are boarding on the ferry. We actually cannot spend time in the city of sails without heading on the water. So we are jumping onto one of the fullest Discovery 360 ferries toward the little island of Tiritiri Matangi. The island of Tiritiri Matangi is a bird paradise, but we'll tell you a little bit more of that later. For now, let's enjoy the cruise. We get to see the most stunning views of the Auckland harbour. We get to see Rangitoto Island, which is an extinct volcano right off the shore of Auckland Central, and an amazing day hike if you guys have a little bit of time. And as we are approaching the island of Tiritiri Matangi, we already can hear the sound of the birds. This island is bound to impress us.
Tiritiri Matangi Island is a pest-free island, meaning that introduced predators like stoats, rabbits, possums, all of that sort of thing that would usually threaten native bird species have been eradicated from this island, making this an absolute wildlife sanctuary heaven for these birds. As soon as we get on the island, everyone is rushing for the narrow walking tracks surrounded in native bush, but Robin and I decide to take one of the tracks that are less populated with people, figuring that we would see more birds because it's a quieter area, and that's exactly what happens. Straight away, there's so many different birds flying above us, we can see all the bushes around us rustling, there's even a few birds on the floor at our feet. This place really has a lot to offer as soon as you enter the island. It's crazy how alive the forest is with bird calls. Melodic sounds are echoing all around us. It's an amazing place to be. And we even spot a few birds on the ground, which actually we have no idea what these are. If you do know what they are, stick them in the comments below. But on our information sheet that we got off the ferry, these birds weren't actually listed on them, but they're really interesting to watch anyway. Our attention is quickly drawn to high up in the trees above us because we can hear some really crazy sounds coming from the tui birds.
On top of the tui bird, we also see a saddleback. We actually only saw saddlebacks once in New Zealand during the entire 365 days on the road. That's to tell you how rare that bird is. However, a bird that is not rare is the little fantail. Called Pi Waka Waka in Maori, this fantail is actually present in almost every single forested area in New Zealand. There is no way you're gonna miss it. And on top of all those birds, we also see some bellbird. Tiritiri Matangi is really famous for bellbird. There is really heaps of them everywhere. Although the tui is probably the most vocal one, the bellbird get their name because they also have a really fun song. They are usually a bit smaller and green, and they actually behave a lot in cliques, so that means that there is a ton of bellbirds actually traveling through the forest together. While making our way around our sidetrack, we stumble upon a feeding station. It's a really well-designed station which only allows birds of certain size to actually get access to their own food. And there we actually spot a hihi or stitch bird. That is black and yellow and white bird, which is super rare. We've never seen one in New Zealand and we are so impressed. But surrounding it, there is also heaps of bellbirds which are ganging together to get the food out of the hihi's mouth.
They were not joking when they said that this is a bird sanctuary for New Zealand native birds on Tiritiri Matangi. We are absolutely blown away by the amount of birds we're already seeing just down a track that's only meant to take us about 15 minutes, but it's more taking us about 2 hours. We're stopping every 2 seconds to watch all the bird activity around us. What's probably more impressive is that this is only a 75-minute ferry trip from Auckland city centre. I can't believe that only this morning we were in the middle of the urban jungle, and now we are in native forest surrounded by all this wildlife. The reason Tiritiri Matangi is so populated with birds is because there's a lot of conservation things going on the island, and that's why a lot of these birds have these little colourful bands around their legs. That's to tell different individuals and see where they're from and to help scientists and conservationists in their conservation effort. However, there is more to Tiritiri Matangi than the birds. For instance, there's a lot of different walking tracks to various different beaches and viewpoints if you want to get some different sort of scenery. Also, there's some historical sites like a lighthouse, which we're going to show you quickly a little bit later. Plus, if you want to do a guided tour of the island, that usually takes about 90 minutes, and volunteers do these guided walks from the wharf once you get off your ferry. But speaking of that lighthouse, it's just a little bit further up the track until we get to this huge, magnificent white lighthouse.
So over there is the Shakespeare Regional Park, which is a protected area in Auckland. It's an absolutely epic place to visit, ton of birds as well, and a ton of walks. So it's another one of the hidden gems in Auckland. But to be quite honest, since we took so long to make our way up toward the lighthouse, we decided to leave almost straight away the lighthouse to make our way back down to the ferry pier because, well, we want to be taking some more pictures and we want to take the time to see some more birds. We decided to make our way back down through a different track. This one is the water track. And let me tell you a little bit about how we get to see so many birds and how we get so many awesome pictures and videos of those birds. Basically, we actually take our time. As soon as we see a spot where we think is going to be really prone to bird presence, like for example this water hole, we actually take the time to sit down in silence and give it about 10 minutes. It usually doesn't take that long for birds to gather around since they see no danger since we are not moving, and they actually start behaving like they were doing in the wild. For instance, we only spent about 10 minutes in front of this very specific waterhole and we saw a female bellbird coming to drink. We saw a massive wood pigeon, which is called a keruru in Maori. It's really awesome bird. And we see a tui. And I even get the chance to place a camera underwater to see it actually drink. It's so awesome how close we got to those amazing animals. But on Tiritiri Matangi, there is actually a catch. You don't want to be stranded on the island without the ferry, so we have to actually keep moving and start making our way back toward the ferry. Along the way, we get into some much denser bush and we get to see even more different birds.
In this section of the forest, we get to see a lot more of those native birds that tend to forage on the forest floor. For instance, we see this super cute little North Island robin, and it is sort of taking all the bugs that we are upturning on the soil with every footstep that we're taking, and it's sort of hopping behind us to get those bugs. That's why it's pretty important, if you are looking out for birds, to have a look behind you every so often. As we continue on the wattle track, we see more watering stations with birds taking a bath, which is super fun to watch. And we see more birds that I think this is the first time that we're seeing them as well in New Zealand. This is the whitehead. And so it's super amazing to see lots of different birds that we've never seen before.
We even got a glimpse at the kakariki, which is a New Zealand native parrot. But we're not done just yet. There is ton more birds to see and there is ton more animals. Here is a giant weta. When you actually scavenge a little bit on the dead leaves of a massive fern, you often find those massive insects, which are the largest insect to be found in New Zealand mainland. All in all, Tiritiri Matangi Island is super close to Auckland and it's a bird paradise. You will see so much wildlife you won't regret it. Guys, today is gonna be pretty fucking epic.
Wait for it.
Let's go.